Good day to everyone. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Küşver Mamedova. I am an assistant professor at the Department of Veterinary Sanitary Expertise, Veterinary Faculty. First of all, I would like to say a lot of thanks to our ADAU team for organization of these lectures, online lectures. Thank you to everyone, to ADAUTV team, and of course, great thanks to our rectorate. First of all, to our rector, Professor Ibrahim Jafarov. Of course, I'm a little bit nervous. It's my first topic on leave video, so I would like to apologize because of some mistakes that can be occurred during my lecture. Today's topic will be food contamination, types of food contamination. So briefly, a lecture's outline is what is food safety in general, definition of hazard and risk, what is food contamination, ways of food contamination, and types of food contamination. I will briefly give information about these outlines. Next slide. So, what is food safety? Briefly about food safety. Every day, you know that every day in every country people fall ill from the food they have eaten. Every day about 8,500 children die because of food or lack of food or diseases which are caused directly the deaths. So these foodborne illnesses are caused by dangerous microorganisms and toxic chemicals. Even though governments throughout the world do their utmost to improve the safety and quality of food. I would like to note that the high number of foodborne illnesses is a major public health issue for all countries. Regarding the World Health Organization information, it has been estimated that 1,800,000 of people each year die because of diarrheal diseases, and most cases that of these diseases can be attributed to contaminated food or drinking water. This information has been provided by World Health Organization in 2007. Also, the World Health Organization has also recognized that foodborne illnesses, first of all, are the problem of developing and developed countries alike, place a burden on healthcare systems, seriously affect infants, young children, the elderly, and those who are already have the other diseases, spawn a vicious circle of diarrhea and malnutrition, undermine the economy and national development efforts, as well as international trade. It means that the problems with food safety can directly influence on international trade. Just like a sample, it's an outbreak pandemic of COVID-19. You know that because of the spread of this virus, all the borders from most of the countries in the world are closed now. So it directly influences on international trade. Our next slide. So in order to meet food quality and safety requirements, First of all, agricultural businesses must identify all aspects of their activities that are decisive factors for the safety of their product, which can directly influence on food safety. They must be able to control hazards and risks at all stages of product life cycle. It means from growing to development, production, storage, transport, marketing. You know, there is a principle for all food safety specialists that food specialists, they have to control all food, including animal origin and plant origin products from farm to fork. Let's continue. So it means that in order to meet specifications and assure consumers that they are obtaining safe food, the operators must therefore be able to identify all hazards. Hazards can potentially contaminate their products at different stages of production. So they have to be ready to control these hazards. They must also be able to assess the level of each risk according to their working conditions, procedures, and practices. On the basis of this analysis, the appropriate control measures adapted to the type and level of risk can be adopted. In food safety, it is very important to understand the difference between two terms, hazard and risk. Hazard, what is hazard? Hazard is a physical or biological agent or substance with the potential to cause a proven adverse effect on health. What is risk? A risk means probability of an adverse health effect. Risk refers to exposure to a hazard. In other words, we can say to consumption of a contaminated food. It can be quantity and frequency of consumption. So, this is the main idea of my lecture today. What is food contamination? I'm going to give the full information. I will try to give a full information about biological, or in other words, microbial contamination. But of course, I have to give some information about other types of food contamination. So, in general, what is food contamination? Food contamination is a very commonly used term. We can meet this term in every day of our life. However, only a few people are aware of the exact reason for food contamination and its effects on human health. Food contamination can directly influence on human health, and in the next slides you will see how it is possible. When food items are not handled or cooked safely, the disease causes organisms such as bacteria, parasites, toxins, viruses, result in food contamination. But I would like to mention that not only bacteria, parasites, or toxins can cause the disease. It can be also the physical and chemical contamination, and you will see information about it in the next slides. The disease-causing parasites produce toxins, and these toxins can also lead to food intoxication. Food intoxication, it's a kind of foodborne diseases. In addition, the presence of pesticides, certain cleaning compounds. What is cleaning compounds? It's different cleaning things that we are using even every day in our kitchens, in our houses. Contaminate the food. So the common reasons for food contamination are improper storing, improper storage, transportation, handling and preparing food. In my opinion, the main reason of food contamination is hygiene, self-hygiene. It means that unhygienic hands and fingernails can bring different diseases to the food. Contamination can contaminate the food. Poor personal hygiene habits, improperly cleaned or sanitized utensils, contamination by flies, cockroaches, insects and pests. But as I mentioned before, for me, the first main reason is hygiene. So, food contamination is a severe public health problem around the world, resulting in foodborne diseases. In my next lectures, I hope that the next lecture will be interactive with students, not on TV. So in my next lectures, I will give full information about foodborne diseases. It can be food poisoning, food spoilage, food intoxication. So these diseases can affect human beings every year. In this topic, we generally concentrate on food contamination by microorganisms, by chemicals, and physiological factors. Why microorganisms? All our students, they are passing microbiology, virology, immunology lessons, and obtaining the full information about microorganisms. But they are just obtain information about the structure of this microorganism, how they can develop in different mediums. But food safety lesson is giving the full information about the diseases that can cause these microorganisms. So the microorganisms contamination of food is a biological contamination. Most of the foods serves as the best media. What is media? Media, it's an environment for microorganisms development, as I mentioned before, for the growth of diverse microorganisms. So it means that in this media, in this kind of food, microorganisms can develop their selves. So microorganisms that grow in food may cause changes in appearance, look of the food, in flavor, odor, and other features of the foods. Also, the degradative changes produced by microorganisms such as putrefaction, fermentation, and rancidity, in addition to degradation, microorganisms also synthesize the substances such as pigments and slimes, which also cause changes in food quality, also in food appearance. Next slide. So, briefly about mechanisms of food contamination. I'm sorry. Okay. There are different types of contamination mechanisms that are involved in food contamination. Small factors that can cause foodborne illnesses are storage. So it means how you will store your food. It will depend, can cause, if there will appear some microbes or bacteria Then cooking temperature. For example, let's take as a sample just milk. If we are getting fresh milk from the cow and directly we'll use this milk without boiling, it means that we can be infected by brucellosis. So for our safety, we have to first of all boil the milk. So cooking temperature, the boiling of milk is a sample of cooking temperature. Then insufficient hand washing. Why hand washing? Just pay attention to the outbreak of COVID-19. Everyone is talking about, everyone is, let's say, crying about hand washing. What does it mean? Why hand washing? Our hands every time is contacting with different surfaces. Let's skip information about COVID-19. Let's forget about it. And just imagine that there is no COVID-19. It means that you will not wash your hands? No. Of course you have to wash your hands. So it was my question to the listeners. So it means that you have to wash your hands even there is no outbreaks, no pandemics or something like that. You are just touch the surface. So after that you have to, even you can see this stuff on my hand. After that I will finish my lecture. I have to go and to disinfect my hands. Even there is no COVID-19. So hand washing and animal wastes. Microbes can be entered into food from humans who washed their hands not systematically. Forget about pandemic. Just think about your self-hygiene. Without any pandemics, without any infection, without anything, just wash your hands. For being safe. Okay. Most kitchen tools and their surfaces contaminated by raw food products. For example, you just buy some vegetables or fruits and without washing these vegetables, these fruits, you started to to cut them. But you bought them from bazaar. There is no COVID, there is nothing. There is just dust in the air. It means that this dust is on the top, on the surface of these products. In my opinion, I prefer to wash even the meat which I am buying from bazaar. It would be more safely for my family. Okay, replications of pathogens are present in food to cause diseases. This topic explores the possibilities of food contamination by various methods. We will try to discuss elements of microbial or biological contamination and the need to perform risk assessments. I would like to mention that risk assessments will be our next lecture, not the other, but next lecture, some next lecture. And additional areas of improvement in the preservation of risks. Okay. So, the main idea of the lecture is the 4 types of contamination. First of all, I would like to mention that in the most literature, we can meet, in the most literature and references, we can meet only information about the 3 types of contamination. But here you will see that there are 4 types of this of food contamination. It's a main types of contamination. Chemical, I will explain what is it, microbial or biological, physical and allergenic. All foods is at risk of contamination from these 4 types. This is why food handlers have a legal responsibility to ensure that the food they prepare is free from these contaminants and safe for the consumer. Food contamination is dangerous. There is no doubt about this. The consequences of eating contaminated food range from sickness all the way to death. Exactly. Because of this, it's critical that you understand what the 4 types of contamination are and how you can prevent yourself from these kinds of contamination and effects of this contamination to the safety of food. In this photo, you can see only 3 ways of contamination. Pay attention. This is the physical contamination. You can see samples of physical contamination. I will give brief information. So it means that when food contaminated physically, you can see these items in food. It can be some parts of clothes, insects' bodies, or plastics, bones. It depends on the situation. But the main idea, physically, food can be contaminated during the processing. So it means that when the food company is preparing some kinds of food, they have to pay attention to the equipment which is involved in the food preparation. The second, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Something went wrong. Okay, here is it. The second way is a chemical contamination. So you may be, it means that when the food contaminated chemically, you can or may be able to smell it or taste it in food. The third way of contamination is microbiological or biological, it's the same. So this is a more dangerous way of food contamination because when the food contaminated biologically, it means that you cannot see, smell or taste microbes in food when they just entered to the food. They just contaminate the food. Next slide. So, the brief information about general food contaminants. What is food contaminants? Unintentional entry into food chain. It can cause by agriculture production, pollution of environment. It can be dust or our environment in general. Storage, transportation, sale. You know, I would like to mention that there are a lot of food products and all of them have a different ways of transportation and conditions of transportation and different temperatures of transportation. So when the food company is going to transport to send their food products to another country or even another city, they have to pay attention to the temperature, to the cleanliness of the clean cars, or even, it doesn't matter, sheep or some other ways of transportation. Sale, technological and cooking practice. I mentioned it before about equipment, dirty equipment and stuff like that. So, classification of food contaminants. Primary contaminants, exogenous. It means that it the reason of these primary contaminants is outside sources. And secondary contaminants, endogenous. It means that they are formatted in food. let's go. So, contamination sources. As I mentioned, first was agriculture production. We are all agricultural specialists, so we have firstly pay attention to the agriculture production. Even it doesn't matter veterinarian is it, or agronomist or economist, it doesn't matter. So, agriculture production, what is it? Use of pesticides, fertilization, emission, water for irrigation, it should be very clean. Use of surface water for irrigation. Attack by microorganisms, especially by molds. Veterinary treatment. What is veterinary treatment? It means that veterinary drugs which are using in veterinary for treatment of animals. It can be residue of antibiotics and other drugs. Then, storage and processing. Post-harvest application of pesticides. Formation from relatively non-toxic pesticides. Attack by microorganisms. Technological and cooking arrangement. Penetration of additives from plastic materials. I did a very small research in Ankara University with Professor Ayhan Filazi there at the pharmacology department. It was on PCB. PCB, it's a substance which is inside of plastic covers, plastic dishes. So we have to pay attention that even plastic materials have to be safe for food. Let's continue. So, priority contaminants, mycotoxins and other microbial toxins. Actually, mycotoxins was my PhD topic. I did my PhD on mycotoxins, and as a result of my research, we have clarified that in Azerbaijan, mycotoxins are not so spread like in other countries. I did my research on local cheese called motal, which is very widely spread in Ganja region, Ganja and west region of Azerbaijan. Thanks God, we did not found enough the quantity of mycotoxins through our research, but even we have it. And it's the other lecture as well, because if I will start to talk about mycotoxins, it will take a long time. Let's continue. Toxic elements, radioactive isotopes, nitrosa compounds. What is nitrosa compounds? It's some kinds of fertilizers. Polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, halogen-containing organic compounds, pesticide residue, veterinary drug residue, I have mentioned it before, and other contaminants. Let's continue. So, let's start, give a brief information about all four types of food contamination. First of all, I mentioned chemical contamination of food. What is chemical contamination and how it can occur? Chemical contamination happens when a food becomes contaminated by some kinds of chemical substances. Chemicals are used frequently in the kitchens, in the food companies for cleaning and disinfection. So it's unsurprising that they can contaminate food. Contamination may occur from preparing food on a surface which has been cleaned before with chemicals and it still has chemical residue on it. Additionally, food can become contaminated from chemicals before it reaches the kitchen. It can happen on the farm, it can happen on the field, it depends on the food company, so it depends on the situation. For example, Fertilizers and pesticides may have been sprayed near food when it was growing. Anybody who prepares and handles food must make sure that the food they serve is free from chemical contamination. What we have to do to ensure this? Always store chemicals in a separate area to food. Follow the manufacturer instructions how to use chemicals. Keep food covered when cleaning, even in our kitchens. Use approved suppliers who can give a guarantee for the safety of the food they provide. The second type of contamination, physical contamination of food. So, what is physical contamination? Physical contamination happens when a food has been contaminated by a foreign object. It can occur at any stage of food delivery and preparation. I mentioned before that when the food company is preparing some kinds of food, it means that they first of all pay attention to their equipment. It means that this equipment have to be safe. Physical contamination can cause serious harm to the consumer, including even broken teeth or choking. Types of physical contaminants that can be found in food include jewelry, hair, plastic, then bones, stones, insects or pest bodies, and even parts of clothes. Even there was like a situation when the equipment is broken, it means that the parts of this broken equipment can physically contaminate the food. Additionally, if there are problems with the food premises or equipment, such as flaking paint or loose screws in a piece of equipment, then this may also enter food, contaminate food. Even, I would like to note that physical contaminants may even carry harmful bacteria, posing an even greater risk than just only broken teeth or choking. So how you can prevent physical contamination? First of all, replacing any damaged equipment immediately. Reporting any faults with equipment and premises without any delay. Having a thorough pest control system in place. Following dress code principles. It means that such as removing jewelry when handling food and wearing a hairnet. For example, what does it mean? I will explain briefly the last issue. What does it mean? We are, just imagine that we are working at the food company, and I'm a woman. Of course, I would like to wear some earrings or some jewelries or rings, watches. But if I am a staff of the food company, when I arrive at the processing area, before I will enter to the processing area, it means that first of all, I have to close my hairs, use hairnets or something other things. Then it means that I have to take off my rings, my earrings, my watches. If I am working at the food company, it means that I cannot hold my long nails. I have to cut them. they have to be, yes, there have to be the rules and conditions for the long nails. That was an example, but in other case, men as well, they are wearing earrings and rings. So these rules and conditions, not only for women. Okay, let's continue.
Please have a question.
Sure.
Is it safe to eat medium rare meat?
Medium what?
Medium rare meat.
No, it's not safe. In our conditions, it's not safe. Yes.
People say that liquids can be contaminated more easily than raw food. Is that right?
No. Raw food can be contaminated easily than liquids because it depends on what kind of liquids. If it's in the bottles and past some procedures, it means that liquids are more safely than raw products. Just imagine, what is raw product? Raw product, it's a meat, it's a milk, it's fruits and vegetables. You're buying them from bazaar. Let's skip meat and milk. It's a little bit deep topic. Let's just imagine that we are buying apples, the more general apples. You trying to wash them, but when during the growing of this apple, the processor or the agronomist used a lot of pesticides or fertilizers, you will not be able to wash through all these residues of these pesticides or nitrogens or fertilizers. So in my opinion, raw products is more dangerous than liquids. I hope that she's satisfied with my answer. So let's continue. Allergenic contamination of food. Actually, it is really very interesting part of this topic, but unfortunately I will be focused on biological contamination. Allergenic contamination of food can occur when a food that causes an allergic reactions comes into contact with another food. For example, if the same knife used to cut normal bread is then used to cut gluten-free bread, or the other sample, if pasta is stored in a tube that were used to contain peanuts. There are 14 named allergens. Again, unfortunately, I will not be able to give... Question again?
Yes. Should the skin be removed from chicken before or after cooking?
I will give my own opinion. In my opinion, before cooking. Because because I will explain why. Just imagine that you buy the canned chicken, as we call it, from village. You just clean it from all the stuff. Even if you are cleaning with boiled water and blah blah blah, some parts of stuff can still stay on skin. So I recommend to clean it before cooking. But it's my opinion. I do not know the other opinions on this. It would be better to ask our moms what they are recommended. Okay. So there are 14 named allergens, but unfortunately today I will not give information about allergens, just briefly, because we do not have enough time. I had to go to biological contamination. So these are the foods that account for the majority for allergies in people. you have to take into consideration, that even a teeny amount of allergy, food allergy, can cause a fatal reaction in humans. It means that if a person has some problems with allergies, even from food allergies, not only dust or from some flowers, a teeny amount, a very small amount of that food can cause a fatal reaction. Fatal, it means this. So, in order to prevent contamination of food with allergens, what you should to do? You must, first of all, ensure your food comes from approved suppliers who can guarantee that their food are not contaminated seriously with allergens. By the way, I forgot to mention some names of allergens. It's like gluten, then peanuts, eggs, soy, and fish, etc. Okay. So the second issue is keep preparation area, equipment, utensils, and clothes that you are used for allergenic foods separate to those you will use for other foods. The third issue, separate allergenic products from other food products in your fridges, freezers, and all other food storage areas. And the last issue is thoroughly clean and disinfect your kitchen regularly, and especially after preparing food that contains one of these 14 allergens. Okay, the last type of contamination. I know that you are all tired. I'm finishing. Don't be upset. Biological, microbial contamination of food. What is this? In my opinion, and in the opinion of the most food specialists, biological contamination of food is the most dangerous contamination. Why? Because, as I mentioned in previous slides, I said that physical contaminations, you can see how the food contaminated physically. When the food contaminated chemically, you can smell it, you can taste it. But when the microbe, bacteria, parasites, toxins, what else, viruses enter the food, you will not be able to feel them. So all this stuff like bacteria and etc., they have, for causing the diseases, they have the incubation period. Again, let's remind the COVID-19. All of us knows that the incubation period of this disease is at least 7-10 days. It means that if you are infected by COVID-19, you will realize it only after 7-10 days. So, in my opinion, biological, microbial contamination is the most dangerous. How it happens? It happens when a food has been contaminated by microorganisms. I said, including bacteria, viruses, mold. What is mold? Molds are producing toxins, and this is cause the food intoxication. Fungi, and of course toxins. This can happen through various means. For example, here is the Suada's answer to Suada's question as well. Undercooking chicken can give rise to Campylobacter. It's a type of bacteria. I will give information in other next lectures. During the rearing and slaughtering of animals, salmonella that lives in animal intestines can transfer into food products. So the storage, preparing high-risk raw foods close to ready-to-eat food can also lead to cross-contamination. The other issue is that fish and shellfish may eat toxic producing organisms that are dangerous to humans if they eat these kinds of foods. So I told about it, but again, microbial contamination is the most common reason behind outbreaks of food poisoning. There is some ideas that COVID-19 caused by some kinds of animal origin foods. There is no exact information about it, but all the world thinks that this virus caused by animal origin products. Because you know Chinese eat everything, so this is the problem of outbreak and problem of pandemic. The best way to prevent this type of contamination is by following strict, high standard and application of high standard food hygiene practices. This means, again, just pay attention that as I mentioned, this prevent and food hygiene. It's not only food hygiene. You will see in the below issues that not only food hygiene, it should be, first of all, self-hygiene. So, having impeccable personal hygiene and taking time off from work when you are ill. Separating raw and ready-to-eat food at all stages of the food handling process, from delivery to serving. It means from farm to fork. Always washing raw fruit and vegetables. But I mentioned before that you can wash fruits and vegetables, but it doesn't mean that you will throw out all the residues of pesticides or drugs or fertilizers which have been used for growing of these fruits and vegetables. Controlling pests and ensuring they are not on the premises. So controlling pests. Pests, it means kinds of insects, cockroaches, flies. Okay, so for controlling of these, of the pests, we are using pesticides. Each farmer has to pay attention to the dozens of the used pesticides and fertilizers. It's very important. Okay, so in this slide you can see how the biological contamination can occur, and the as a result of biological contamination can occur food poisoning and transfer of bacteria. You can see the way from source of contamination, transfer of bacteria, hazardous foods, allow bacteria to grow, then you are eating this food, and after that you are getting the food poisoning. It's not a good condition, but it's happening. So let's continue. Biological contamination. I have only 10 minutes, yeah? Okay, I have 10 minutes. I hope that I will finish in 10 minutes. Biological contamination is when bacteria or other harmful microorganisms, please pay attention, bacteria or other harmful microorganisms. It doesn't mean that food can be contaminated only by bacteria. It can be viruses. I mentioned it before. So, contaminated food. It is a common cause of food poisoning and food spoilage. It is another topic. I will deeply explain it in the next lecture. So, food poisoning can happen when disease-causing bacteria or other germs are also called pathogens, spread to food and are consumed. It means that consumed, it means that me or my friends or somewhere the other person is going to buy the food, and this food is already contaminated with biologically, and this person is not informed about this contamination and will consume this contaminated food. Bacteria are very small organisms, microorganisms that split and multiply very quickly. In conditions ideal for bacterial growth, it means that if the medium and environment is suitable for bacterial growth, one single cell bacteria can become 2 million in just 7 hours. 7 hours and one single cell bacteria will become 2 million. It's really very dangerous. Certain types of bacteria also produce bacterial toxins in the process of multiplying and producing waste. Bacterial toxins can be very dangerous. For example, in fact, botulinum, the bacterial toxin that causes botulism, is the most potent natural poison known in nature. Certain foods are more vulnerable to biological contamination. In the simple words, I can say that some kinds of foods, they are suitable for biological, they are very suitable for biological contamination than other kinds of food. So they provide everything, every environment and every medium, everything which bacteria need to survive and multiply. It can be food, water, and natural acidity. So these foods are called high-risk foods. Origin and nature of biological risks. Biological risks arise from contamination of food by pathogenic organisms. I told before that pathogens or germs, or microorganisms, mainly viruses, bacteria, fungi, and fungi, prions, etc. These organisms are often associated with humans and raw products that enter the food production chain. Several form part of the natural flora of the environment where food is produced and grown. Okay. There are two important elements have to be considered for risk of a biological nature. First of all, their occurrence on or in food is primarily due to a lack of, again, hygiene and sanitary conditions. Depending on the pathological nature of the biological agent, even a small contamination can result in food poisoning that can have serious effects. So, the operator, therefore, has a large measure of responsibility in this area. Poor practices are the source of most contaminations via the soil, water, and employees' hands. So employees' self-hygiene, let's say. Foodborne viruses, I will give information in the next lectures because I have only 5 minutes and I would like to finish my lecture. So I will skip these slides. Just pay attention to the, just pay attention to the foodborne viruses which can cause the serious digestive or liver problems like Norwalk virus, hepatitis A virus, rotaviruses, etc. And these viruses can be transferred by water. So I gave already information about bacteria, and I mentioned that the bacteria are therefore the most important biological food risk. Take it into consideration. Okay, so we will skip this. There is just briefly about microbiological cross-contamination. Microbiological cross-contamination is a major problem, especially for certain bacteria like Listeria monocytogenes. Why I put this bacteria? Because I worked with this, with Listeria monocytogenes in Ankara University for more than 2 months. I stayed in Ankara and we conducted the research on Turkish kinds of cheeses and tried to define the Listeria monocytogenes. Okay. I know. In conclusion, I would like to say that all food is at risk of one of the 4 types of contamination. It can be chemical, biological, or microbial, physical, and allergenic. However, it's essential that you prevent these contaminants from affecting the safety of your food. Food poisoning, injury, and allergic reactions are all consequences of contamination. But by following safe working practices, safe working production, you can help to prevent them all. Thank you for your attention. I hope that all of you are satisfied with this lecture, and I hope to see you next time. If you have any questions or would like to discuss, no? Okay. Thank you very much.